So your first 2 years as a position coach, probably, well, I mean, you go from Kenneth Walker, you got the best player in the nation at the position, to last year, obviously, running game didn't work out how you wanted to. What's year 3 look like?
Year 3 has got to be better. There's no excuses. The continuity of our staff. We've been together. It's going on year 4 now, obviously. So there's no excuses. For us, we got to do a better job. Obviously, teaching, motivating, developing, and obviously our guys got to take some ownership as well. But I do think that we're in a good position right now. These guys had a great spring. Obviously, we only had one new addition, obviously this summer, but for the most part, I think we're in a good spot, and guys have been working hard, and they understand as well that last year can't happen again. There's a standard at Michigan State when it comes to running the football, and for us, we got to uphold that standard every day of practice. And I think these guys have answered the bell, and it's going to be about being consistent from here on out, and we're going to do it on Saturdays as well.
In those past 3 years, 6 transfer running backs. How have you guys been able to adjust and adapt to that? And is that something that you were able to build off of with Kenneth and Harold coming in and kind of use that as a blueprint?
Yes and no. Obviously, you love to get high school guys and develop them. But the way the roster was set up, and with guys obviously losing guys early on, like Elijah left, and some other guys here and there. Us transitioning and moving Connor Hayward to tight end. So numbers get down, so you got to fill spots early. You want guys who played football before, and guys who put it on tape that they could do it at the college level. So I think Kenneth. We got blessed with him. He was a phenomenal player, and no one expected him to do what he did, but he did, and he went out there. He's probably the best player in college football. But for us and for me, I would love to get to the point where I'm developing younger guys. That way, I can stagger them a certain way. But if it takes a transfer for us to win, that's what it's got to be.
It kind of as a follow to that. I don't think you've had 3 guys with this much experience.
No, not yet. That's what the most exciting part about it. You got 3 guys in the room, well, really 4 if you include, you got Nathan Carter, Jordan Simmons, who's been here 4 years, Jaron Mangum, who's played a lot of football, and Jalen Berger as well. I think that's the biggest win that we have in our room. A lot of guys who've played a lot of football, who've done a lot of things well, and they all bring a lot of different things to the table. So that's what I'm most excited about. And the maturity level, I could handle things and talk to these guys a little different than I can a younger guy like Barber. I could get it a little more in depth with teaching, and obviously understanding the football and the running back position a little deeper with these guys because they've seen a lot of football.
I've heard coaches say before that it's really hard to play 3 guys in a game adequately, as much as they would like to play. Are the players kind of aware of that in the competition, that really a couple guys are going to emerge and be the guys? Is that how you feel about it?
Absolutely. As a former running back myself, you want to go out there and have 30 carries a game, but it's all about what makes the team successful. You've seen teams, Georgia's done it in the past, LSU, a lot of other schools where they've had 3 or 4 guys rotate in and they've had success. Obviously you got to have guys who fit our core values, and one of our core values is selfless. If it takes you going out there and just being a 3rd down back, well, you got to buy into that role. You may not get 30 carries, but whatever you can do to go out there and execute and help the team win, you got to be able to humble yourself and do it. And I think, I've had this conversation with these guys to get ahead of it as well, because I do understand it's going to happen at some point where guys are going to be, they want to be the guy, they want the ball. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting the W in the column. And for me personally, I got to put the best product out there for Michigan State. That's my job, that's the goal, and that's what has to get done. So whoever's helping us win, whoever's got the hot hand, whoever does it in practice on a consistent basis, that's who's going to play.
Is this the most competitive your room's been since you've been here, you think, Effrem? And what's that like as a coach? If so?
Absolutely. Even year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, this is the most competitive it's been, and it shows up on film every day in practice. And we are grading everything every day. As far as individual drills go, as far as transitions go, it's the little details that's going to take us to the next level. And I think it's kind of open these guys up a little bit more to be a little bit more comfortable with each other, because now you're getting guys who are doing things they hadn't done in the past. Finishing a little harder, straining a little more. Pass blocking a little longer, catching the ball a little better. And I think that has created a lot of competition. And these guys know, if I slip up today, somebody's going to get my reps. So these guys have learned to bring it every single day. And I think, we're only on, day 3 or 4 of camp. If these guys can continue to do that to day 14 and 15, I think we'll have a good product.
From a mental toughness standpoint, when you were a player, talk about your approach to mental toughness then compared to this generation of athletes. Is it the same? Is it different? Is it a mix of both?
I think it's a little different because obviously rules have changed over time. I came up in the era where we still had 2-a-days and everything, and rules were a little different where coaches could be a lot more hands-on with punishment and stuff, and now you got to be a little more sensitive to certain things, which I understand, that's the way the world is. So us as humans, we got to adapt a little bit. But, I do try to implement some of those things as well, as far as, being on time, being early, some of those things that do, take mental toughness, but guys don't really think about a lot. I challenge these guys on a daily basis, being on time, being early, even academic meetings and appointments and stuff like that, because we use the example all the time. If I could trust you to go to class and be on time, well, fourth down when the game's on the line and we need a first down, I can trust you there as well. It's hard to trust a guy who's not doing it right off the field.
Okay, thank you.
How much did you spend the off season trying to look back at last year and figure out the things that did go wrong? And what things did you pinpoint when you did go through that needed to change?
Well, we sat as a staff postseason like we do every year, and we go through and watch every clip, run and pass, from the year prior. And the one thing that I did, I wanted to take notes on, how detailed and disciplined we really were. And there were times where we weren't as detailed and disciplined as we should have been in certain situations, And I understood where guys were coming from, but at the end of the day, we have to be consistent with everything. If I tell you your toes have to be at 7.5 yards, that doesn't mean 7, that doesn't mean 8, it means 7.5. And so those little details are going to take us a long way. Same thing, if we're running some kind of zone scheme, your aiming point is your aiming point. Press the line of scrimmage. Make the right read, make the right cut. And it's the consistency factor, doing it over and over again. Taking 2 yards, taking 5, taking 1, then breaking for 15, and letting the big ones come to you. I think last year we had an issue where we were trying so hard to make the big play. Everyone wanted to be Kenneth Walker. We're coming off of 11-win season, obviously a Heisman Trophy candidate who probably should have won the thing. But we're coming off that year with that guy, and the next guy comes in, they want to be him. Well, everyone's not Kenneth Walker. You got to play your game. And guys were trying so hard to make the big play. Well, let's be consistent and do our job, and the big plays will take care of themselves.
With Berger, his name just really hasn't come up a lot. I feel like since last season, Nate Carter comes in, there's people excited about him and Jared, sort of a proven thing to a degree. But what's sort of been his mindset, and is he any different physically or anything with this new competition and another summer here or winter here and everything?
He definitely, did change his body a little bit. You'll see he's about 212, 215 right now, so he's got a little bigger. The thing about him, he understands that we brought new guys in, and I had to talk with him before we even brought these guys in, him and Jordan as well, just to let him know, obviously, to keep the room together that, we're bringing new guys in. And I told Berg, I'm not going to take anything from you, but you're going to have to earn everything. And I think he's answered that bell. Just like any, young college student, you have ups and downs. But I do think, over the past couple of days since campus started, he's been able to answer it and, come back and get ready to go. I think he's done a great job of stepping up, challenging him to be a leader, and obviously challenging him to be more vocal because that's not who he is. But if he can step up and do the right thing, well, obviously it's going to help the younger guys as well because they'll see him doing it right, and that's how you develop good young players as well.
With the offensive line being healthier, how much easier does that make your job and the players' jobs?
I mean, we love those big guys. Once they're healthy, we get rolling. I mean, that's a love lifesaver for running back. So I think it makes my job a lot easier, and it makes my guys' job a lot easier. I think we have a lot of trust in those guys. I trust Cap completely, and I trust the job he's doing. And same thing with our backs. They trust the offensive line. This summer they tried to do a lot of stuff together. Going out to eat, maybe go bowling or stuff, trying to build that continuity and relationship. I think it's paid dividends because right now, they're communicating more, they're talking more, and, calling each other out when they're wrong. But they're doing it in a respectful manner where these guys are getting better, and I think they care about one another more than we did last year.
I know it's early in camp, but how have you seen them maybe create some separation for the running backs, or just maybe some gaps and holes for them?
It is early, and I do think over time we'll see a little more separation. But for me personally, I'm just harping on the details. I do see separation in the details, guys who can go out there and do it consistently, and certain guys who, kind of have to slow it down a little bit. But I do think, I try hard to put guys in position to succeed at practice, give them a little bit at a time. We try to script every rep out. And I would put a guy like Davion Prum, a younger guy, put him in a position, okay, today you're just going to do this. I want you to master this, and then we'll move on. Relative to other guys, older guys who play a lot more ball, I can put them in 4 or 5 different situations and see how much they could actually handle. So that for me has been garnering more separation. Guys who can handle more, we're throwing a lot at them right now. Their heads are spinning. Like I'm sure Coach Johnson told you, in probably a week or so, it'll all condense and you'll get guys playing a lot faster. I think it'll be better for them as well.
Jay was saying it's a little early, obviously, but with Barber, is he a guy with his build and speed and everything? Could you see him doing multiple things for this offense down the road, as opposed to just being a straight running back?
You love that. I think we'd all love that because his speed's a lot different. He's probably one of the fastest guys, if not the fastest in the Big Ten. He can run. He can fly. He's a 10, 200-meter guy. So you see it. We've seen it all summer. Him running and rolling. The thing about him is it's going to be about slowing him down. Everything is full speed. And, at the running back position, it's all about patience and tempo. We always talk about slow to fast through. So we've challenged him all summer and even now to slow his tempo down and try to get everything in. He didn't have to read things in high school. It was just give me the ball and let me go outrun everybody. Well, it's the college football where everybody's a little faster. So for him, it's going to be about slowing the game down. And obviously, same thing I said about Davion. With him, putting him in position to succeed early and giving him piece by piece and helping him stack it up like that.
Payton had seen so much with the 26 starts. With the new starting quarterback, whoever that is that putting even greater premium on pass blocking for your guys?
Oh, that's two main rules in our room: protect the football, protect the quarterback. No matter who's back there, we got to keep that guy upright because we knew our season is always different. If you lose one or two quarterbacks, the season's always different regardless. And so I think it has put an emphasis on it, but we're going to keep the same approach and make sure we do our job and keep any one of them upright, whether it's Noah, Caden, Sam, or whoever.
Who's your best guy right now? You got one play to throw a Hail Mary and win the game. Who's your best pass pro guy?
Ooh, I'd probably put Jordan Simmons or Jaren Mangum out there. Probably.
Mason obviously has a different type of body, maybe a little bit than these guys. What does he need to do to kind of establish himself in that rotation as like a 1 or 2 guy?
The one thing that he's already done, he's established himself as a leader in the room. He's played a lot of ball. Obviously, he was with Coach Tucker previously at Colorado, so he knows the system really well. So it wasn't really for him to come in and learn something new. He played in the system before. For him to establish himself as the top 2 guy in the running back room, the one thing he's going to have to do is, 1, be consistent, and 2, use whatever trait that may be for him to separate himself. Whether it's being a third down back, whether it's being every down back, he just got to establish himself as that and go ahead and do it. I do think, once we get in more situations, and obviously it's only the second padded day, when we get to the scrimmage situation and setting, we'll be able to see a lot more from all of these guys and be able to kind of define roles a little clearly.
You said obviously last year can't happen again in performance, but do you get a sense that there's even more pressure on the run game with the situation at quarterback as you will be breaking in a new guy?
I mean, there's going to be pressure regardless. I mean, this is a performance-based business for coaches and players, regardless of what happens. But, I don't look at it that way. I just think if we go out there and execute and do our job, we'll be fine. I think we've put in the work and, our guys are together. Like I said, the continuity of our staff, we believe in each other. And all we have to do is go out there and stay healthy and put a good product on the field, we'll be fine.
What did Carter show during spring and what has he done since then?
He showed me a lot of explosiveness, a lot of elusiveness, and he's definitely a very serious guy. I have to get on him time and time again about, relaxing, and it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to mess up. He tries to be so perfect every time, and I think that kind of hurts him a little bit, but he's gotten better at it. But he's very, he runs hard, he's physical, and he's a lot faster. He's got another gear than a lot of other guys think. So I think that'll separate him a little bit. He'll be able to give us some home runs if we get a chance to get those.
From Jordan Simmons started the Peach Bowl. I think a lot of people forget that. What's it say about him that he stuck around when a lot of people just pushed him aside, maybe in their minds?
Jordan's a great kid. No matter what happened, last year, the year before that, he stuck around and he's still working hard. You go out there and watch his practice today, he's still doing it how it's supposed to be done. He's going to class, he does everything right off the field. Phenomenal kid. I love Jordan. He comes in and works, and he brought in the role last year, with special teams. I think that helps Jordan go a long way because he's a team player, and I think that for him, the next step is just going to be, in the run game. What else can you do? You can't just be downhill all the time. He's got to be able to run out in space. Get wide zone going, get some gap schemes going, catch the ball a little bit better. And he's worked on all of those things, all off season. I think Jordan is a guy who I'm completely confident will put in the game at any moment.
Anything else for Coach?
Thank you.
Very good.
Good deal. Welcome. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Good morning. Appreciate you coming out. Excited, obviously, to start this 23. I mean, really, the season started back in January, but the phase of now that the season is exciting. I personally feel like we're at really a good space from a standpoint of the biggest thing that I feel is different is depth. We really have depth at every position that I think has maybe been a little bit different in the last couple of years. I look at really every position, and there's guys that we feel have the ability to get on the field and do some positive things. So that's really been good. I think we're off to a solid start in camp. Today wasn't as good as it needed to be, and I think the guys sense that. Really only the second day in pads. We're really, really early in things, but as you go in camp, you begin to add more things, the defense begin to add more things, and that multiplicity effect you've got to be able to handle. So, a solid start, but really excited about the depth and how the guys are working. quarterback wise, it's exciting. I really like the room. We got 4 guys in the room with Drew Scorfar and Caton and Sam and Noah, and I think they're progressing well. They're progressing well. They're doing some things, and it's early yet, so I've got to kind of continue to see. And now that we've been able to put the pads on, it's a little bit more real in a sense of football. When you just have shoulder pads and helmets, a little bit different. But they're doing some good things. It's a good situation. I like the guys in the room, and they're working hard. And like I said, I think we have depth at a lot of positions, and it's really been positive. So with that, I'll open it up to you guys and whatever you got.
We talked to Mel last week, and he didn't name starting quarterback, so just wanted to give you the opportunity to go ahead.
Yeah, no, we're still working on it. Yeah, but great question though.
I guess from that competition, how different is it from last year when you knew what you had in Peyton's experience, and now you've had Noah for year 4, but game experience is limited in Peyton.
Yeah, I think it's different from a certain standpoint of, as you mentioned, it's always different when you don't have a guy that's had the actual starting game experience. It's always, I think, a little bit different in the quarterback room when you're the starter, as far as how you handle that and how that happens. So, I don't think any of us will know the answer to that until September 1st. But I do like the room. I mean, the guys are working hard. It's a good room. They're challenging each other. They're empowering each other. So I'm excited about it because they all got some good skills. And I like our room. We have depth, which is really exciting. But yeah, from that standpoint, like I said, I won't really know that until we go out there against Central on the 1st.
When you are breaking in a new quarterback, and you have the changeover like you did at receiver, is there a benefit to that? Because a lot of those quarterbacks, whether they're with the 2s or 3s of the scout team, are working with these receivers that are going to move into those roles?
Yeah, I think there's some benefits to that situation. I like that as you mentioned, kind of those second-year guys with Gates and Glover and Tyrell Henry. They've been kind of working with them, and so that will, I think, bode some positives for us as we move forward. So I think there is some of that match, and that is good for us.
Noah came in with you essentially.
Correct. That COVID year. Yes.
Yeah, so you've been around him a long time, and I know he's competing for the job, but it's sort of his moment, whether he wins it or not. This is the best opportunity he's had. I'm just wondering, do you sense that he senses that, and is there a difference to somebody who's in the position he is now?
Yeah, I think there is some sense of difference. I think part of that difference a little bit for Noah is just the maturing process that he's went through since 20 when he got here in the fall. He got here and obviously we had the interesting year in 20 and then he was kind of in redshirted and down the line. But I really felt like even a year ago his approach kind of changed for the better. And he became a lot more locked in and focused and has really carried that now to this level because obviously it is very much a different situation. He's the oldest guy in the room. He's been with us the longest, and that from an experience standpoint of knowing it bodes well for him. But I also think he's done the right thing in how he's approached it. It's really been positive. He's always a great worker, but also what he's doing mentally is showing up.
His willingness to sort of compete for that job. Like he didn't know Peyton was going to transfer when he's
right
in the spring and staying.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, in a day and age where it's really easy to leave, especially at that position, why you think he's stayed and what you see in him that makes him that person.
I think he kind of accepted the challenge, and I think he wanted to battle through the adversity of maybe not being the starter a year ago, and I think he felt like his game was continuing to improve, and he could put him in a space to really be competitive and help the team.
In terms of depth, you talked about having that depth at all positions. In terms of with the running backs, obviously a pretty deep room. Is that something that's not going to shake itself out until the end of the month, or are there 2 or 3 guys that you see that look like they're going to take that step earlier than others?
Right. Right now I think it's a little bit early for me to say because, like I said, today was just day 2 in pads. So again, I firmly feel we're going to need a little more time throughout this month to see where that is. There's guys that have a little more experience, so those guys are obviously up there a little bit, but yet I'm excited about the room. It's as I mentioned, we've got some guys that played, and we've got some influx of new guys in there, and it's a good mix and match. And so I think once we get to more padded days, more scrimmage days, and all that, I'm hoping that sorts itself out.
And when you have a day like you described today that maybe was not as good as you would like as a staff, do you really get after the guys, or do you say, hey, it's early, let's let them work through it?
No, I think our mentality is to kind of get after them every day, and create that. I mean, we're always in the position of trying to make the game easier than practice and meetings. And so we want to take that mentality as a coaching staff, and that comes from Coach Tucker and trying to create that. So hopefully when they get out there in a game day, like, okay, I've done this before and I've been here. So we're trying to create that good, bad, or indifferent, trying to be very consistent with a high demand, a high challenging focus for practice each and every day.
Coach,
Jay,
from a
you
mental
keep
toughness
mentioning about
standpoint,
this depth and how essentially, I think one thing a lot of people want to know is how it's going to equate to wins this season. You've mentioned it, Tucker's mentioned it, players have mentioned it, and I know that's kind of the general consensus around the fan base.
Well, I think when you have more depth, it allows you to practice better. There's been times in the past where lack of depth does not allow us to prepare how we want to prepare. So many times you can prepare more and prepare at a higher level. That should bode itself to hopefully better performance on the field. I think that's one. And then I think the second thing is it also is challenging all of us among our offense because there are more guys that we feel can play. It's the intensity's higher, the focus is higher, and you kind of get that all gelling together, and then that's got to lend itself to better performance and hopefully more wins.
Coach, when you touched on it earlier about mental toughness. The quarterback is obviously probably one of the most positions that need the most mental toughness. How do you manage the different personalities? Do you have a different approach with different individuals? How do you manage all those different personalities to get the most out of them?
Yeah, I think it is challenging. As we all know, it's from the quarterback perspective. I think they're all a little bit different, right? And I think we've got a good feel. We talk a lot and we talk openly amongst each other of where they are and how they are and what they need. I ask them, what do you need from me? And because I think that's important because, as you mentioned, everyone's different and how they approach. Sometimes you maybe just have to wink at an individual. Sometimes you might need to get after one. But I feel like with our relationship and how we communicate, we're all kind of on the same page of what needs to happen. And so we try to do that as a whole staff and try to figure out how those guys tick so we can address them the right way and put them in a good situation.
Jay, with Jalen Barberin listed as a running back and Alante as a receiver, are those guys though that we think that we could see maybe in different spots that could be multi-dimensional sort of pieces for you?
Possibly. Again, I think it's a little early for me on that. With both of those being newcomers and obviously both of them really just kind of getting around this summer. Didn't have the spring. I would need more time to figure that out.
Okay. Well, what do you like about them so far that you've seen?
Yeah, well, obviously, I think you can see Alante. I mean, I really like the way he approaches the game. His work ethic has been really, really good. He's a physical player, and again, he's beginning to pick up on what we're trying to do from a scheme deal. And Jalen, as we all know from his past, I mean, the guy can fly. And so working with him of transitioning into the system and also working at times when we need a little more tempo and then use the speed at different times. So that will be a little bit of a transition for him. But they're both starting to make strides and understand it. So I think they do have a good and unique skill set. So it's going to be interesting to see how that continues to develop.
As far as the competition on the line, how deep do you think you can go this year, and how deep do you want to go this year?
Well, I want to go as deep as I can without obviously, affecting the play. And that's where I think, it's interesting. I mean, I look at the tackle position and the interior guys, and I mean, Cap is moving those guys all around all the time. And so I'm excited. I mean, if you go back to 21 for a greater part of the year until we got a little dinged, we were playing 10 guys, a lot. And I think we can be in that world. I don't know if it'll be quite that extreme, but I think we're approaching that because we've got some guys that came in the program. You look at some second-year guys that are in the program now that have taken leaps and bounds. You look at, even some of the third-year guys. So you look at Keyshawn, coming in. So I think that's there, and as we continue to progress, I'm hoping that we can get to that role because it's going to help us all. And then if hopefully you don't have the injury, but if you do, then that player's ready to go and has some experience and can help us.
You lose Jaden and Keon and Tyler on Daniel Barber. All these guys, it seemed like last year you had a pretty good idea of who these playmakers would be going in. Do you get a sense that obviously with the guys that left that these guys know there's openings for catches, yards, all that stuff, and there's maybe different feeling from the group? trying to take over these key positions?
Yes, I think so. I absolutely do. You know, obviously, again, what we have to determine, what they have to present themselves as players is who do you want to get the ball in their hands and who do you want to touch it. And, you know, I'm excited that receiver core, as I mentioned, you know, is really continuing to grow. You know, I'm excited about Montori Foster. We know about Trey. I mean, Trey's been steady as it can be. You know, then you got the young influx and even the newcomers. So I definitely feel there's some playmaking ability in there. It's going to look different than it was a year ago, but I'm fine with that because I'm very confident in those guys. And so I think that, and then, you know, shoot, we got 9 or 10 tight ends, and I'm excited about that position. You know, the looks of the person that I think has really improved his game is Malik Carr. You know, not only I know he has the skill set to run and catch and do all that, but what he's been doing physically in the run game is really taken a step, which makes him more of a complete player. And then you add in there some of these other guys that we have and some of the young guys getting older. So, you know, it's going to be a combination of who we got to get the ball in their hands and who can do it. And so, you know, I think a little more time will tell us and begin to kind of lend itself and direct us where that needs to go.
Jay, thinking back to Noah's first play of his career, and Peyton got dinged, you put him in, thought it was going to be some sort of a running play or a very safe.
Is that the touchdown he threw? Am I thinking
Through
that?
that deep one, he got the PI.
Okay, yeah.
Jay.
Yeah, okay.
What does it say about the trust you have in him or the maturity he had to make you call a play like that?
Yeah, no, as you know, you've been around Noah a little bit. I think he's very smooth. He's very, very poised, and so I'm very trustworthy of all those guys in the room. And so I had no problem with that because I mean he doesn't flinch. You know, he's one of those guys that can handle it, handles hard coaching, handles adversity, and that's why we mentioned earlier why he's still here. So yeah, he presents that every day.
Did you think about last year, Peyton, before he left, brought up the idea that he was pretty beat up starting with that Western game. Were there points last year where you thought Noah might be, given that Peyton was a little banged up, the answer for a little while?
You know, possibly. You know, you never know on that. It all comes to what's the here and now, the situation, and what the physical condition is. But I was very confident if that come to be that Noah would be fine. Absolutely.
With the ads being on now, how much are you hoping that this can expedite maybe the QB race in terms of clarity and what you're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, it always is because, again, you know, now you have to start dealing with a little bit different things from the O and the D line perspective, particularly when you're talking the pass game, you know, and then also what will happen, which is just a part of fall camp, I think, for everyone. But as you go through fall camp, obviously you're trying to get things in to install things for your offense. Well, the defense is doing the same. By the time you get to day 5 or 6, there's probably more things in that you'll ever have in a game, and there's more things in that they'll ever have in a game. And so what I'm looking to see is when we get that volume, how do they handle it? And so that's coming here in the next couple of weeks, you know. And then we certainly do things because we don't want to, you know, have analysis by paralysis. We don't want to be paralyzed with what we're doing. But again, I think it's going to put them in a situation where they're going to show where they're at and how they're handling things, and that will be positive for us.
There's so much to talk about. Noah, what differentiates and separates Caton as a player, and what skill sets does he bring that could overtake him for that job?
Yeah, I think Caton, I've been very pleased. You know, Caton has a exceptional arm talent. I mean, freakish arm talent, and you know, he's really gifted there. And I think since his arrival here, you know, there's been a couple opportunities that he's done a good job running the ball and moving the ball with his feet. So it's that coupled with, you know, really Caton's just going into his second fall. And where he's come mentally and the command that he's had is really, really good. Because again, as you mentioned earlier, you kind of get into that trust deal, and I'm at the point where he's really, really locking into that and doing a great job with all of that. So I think that makes him very marketable.
Both of those guys were new the other day saying, like, essentially paraphrasing, but consistency would sort of be the dominant trait that wins out in this battle. Is that how you see it as well? Is there anything else that you'll be prioritizing when you have to sit down and figure it out?
I think it's consistency, and we try to look at the whole picture of things, you know, and how they're performing. At the end of the day, they need to take care of the ball and get the team into the end zone and score points. And so that's, you know, and sometimes that's a little bit harder to evaluate in a practice setting, but you get a pretty good feel for that. So that's what I'm going to look for. And then, you know, as we all know, we can't expect any of these guys to be perfect. I mean, we can't. And I've shared that with them sometimes. You know, you get in this type of situation, you're trying to be perfect. I'm like, you're not going to be perfect. But I want to see what you have to do after that imperfect play, because that's going to matter on Saturdays. And so that's a work in progress, and we're working on that every day. And so I want to see that whole mix and match of how do they do it, how do they handle the team, how do they run it, how do they manage it, and then where are they at? Can they keep the poise and come back and play the next play? So we're constantly stressing that in the meetings and on the field, and right now the arrow's up that they're handling it well.
Gee, I think every coach would love to have a clear number one quarterback, but we've seen it, we saw it last year in Ann Arbor where they had two guys going early and then picked them. Is it possible that you could use more than one quarterback at the beginning of the season and then let that determine it?
That could be a possibility, yes, that could be. I don't really know yet. I've done that in my past some, so I'm not completely against it. I just think what presents itself, and at the end of the day, it's going to come back to the team, obviously, and what we feel is best for our team and best for that room and how it affects the whole team. So if we think that's the best interest, yeah, that could be a possibility.
How's Sam been doing so? How's Sam been doing so far? Mel and Indy said it's a 3-man race. I don't know.
Yeah.
Where's he at so far, though? Just coming in the summer.
Right. No,
Sam
Sam is progressing well. You know, he took some time. You know, the way his schedule said, he got here in the middle of June, but you know, I've been very pleased with just coming here, and now these are the first practices he's been involved in. His mental approach has been really, really strong. He understands it in the meeting room. I try to challenge him all the time, and he has the answer. And so Sam's done well, and he's talented and kind of working out the flow of things, but it's been positive. I mean, he's right in there and competing. He shows good poise out there. We've tried to put him in some challenging situations early, and he showed some good poise. So I'm excited about Sam.
The other tight ends, some came in the middle of, or in time for spring practice, and the additions, the younger guys came up. Can you expand a little bit more about who's coming up behind the car?
Right, you've got that one, a guy that's just been a workhorse for us for a number of years is Evan Morris, a local kid, and really, he's been playing well. I like Evan. Jalen Franklin, who joined us last spring, is beginning to come along in the transfer deal. Then you got Michael Masunas and Jack Nickel, and there's all sorts of guys. Adam Mola is doing good. So, the younger guys, I think, still need to continue to grow, and even some of the guys that just joined us, like Jalen Franklin, for example, Tyneal Hopper, they got to grow, but I'm starting to see them come, and so they're beginning to challenge it. And so what's going to be interesting, I think, in that position is for what do you want to do, how do you put them in, and where do you put them? Because certain ones, as we know, maybe have a little bit better strong suit and whatever scheme that you're involved in. So that's the challenge right now between myself and Coach Gilmore and the rest of us, trying to piece that all together. What mix of those guys puts us in a good place?
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thanks guys. Good to see everybody.
Thanks, Jim.